our city initiative, meaning that we have and invited our community out with our elected officials, other members of our community. For the first 30 minutes of this process, we are going to allow for those that have come to visit the community, elected officials, on the visit, we have the opportunity to meet people each area, ask questions of more elected officials. I don't know all of the elected officials that are here today, but let me share with you those that I see very quickly. Myself, I'm here, Mr. Robert Research, Representative of District C, City of Marque, Vice President. Mr. Joe Tommy, representative for District B, City of Marque, Vice President. Mr. Stacy McCullough, representative of District D, City of Marque, Vice President. I believe I see this is TCISD. Just these precinct reviews available for us today. There are other elected officials that are trying to be here as we speak. But for the first 30 minutes of this program, we would like to give you the opportunity to come visit with us. We are here with this simply to listen to your questions and your concerns so that we can understand what we need to do to move our city forward. So this time, we get out of the stage, address us, those that you would like, and start a dialogue with us so that we can understand yours. We've got 30 minutes and we'll reconvene after 30 minutes with the next phase of our time. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your presence. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Keith Bell. I'm the mayor of the city of Marque. And we thank you all for coming out to our Safe City initiative. Today, we designed the opportunity for you to come and visit with your elected and your appointed officials. You came out today in temperatures that were 40 degrees with a steady rain. That suggests to me that you, in fact, are extremely concerned and interested about your community. I'd also like for you to understand that we are here today as well, your city and school board and members of your county leadership, because we are just as concerned about our community. We're concerned about our community because we believe the first priority of any community and any city is to keep our citizens safe. That is the first priority of any city, the first priority of any country, and that is the first priority of our city. And there have been tremendous amounts of concern as it relates to whether or not we in this city are safe, whether or not we in this city have the ability to maintain the safety of our citizenry. We're here today because we are listening to you. We're here today because we understand that you are extremely frustrated about several things as it relates to our community and our ability to keep you safe. So today is the first day, the first step in a long journey that will culminate in the city of Marque being, and I promise you this, the safest city in the state of Texas. We won't get there tomorrow. We are not naive, but we are resolute and determined in our focus and drive to make sure that we will be the safest city in the state of Texas. How do we do that? We do that with a Safe City initiative. A Safe City initiative is an initiative that we will present to our city council and to our community with bullet points, with recommendations, and with resolute ideas that we would be able to implement so that we can make our city as safe as we all know that our city can be. And there are three different areas of focus to this proposed initiative. The first area of focus is an area that I'd like to talk to you about, and it might be an area that's hard for us to hear, but if you would hear me out, I pray that you would understand why we need to move forward in the way that we do. The first area of any Safe City initiative focus has to be law enforcement. Has to be law enforcement. In this country, there is no other prescription by which we are allowed to maintain our safety and our civility except law enforcement. We don't have militias in this country upholding our Constitution. We don't have a militarized outfit in this country upholding our Constitution. We have a civilian police force that has been designed to uphold our Constitution and to keep us safe. And if that's true, then that means that we need our police departments to keep us safe. If we need our police departments to keep us safe, and perhaps this might be hard to hear for some of us, but we have to start this discussion, then that means that we have to support our police department. That means that we have to support our police department. Now, let me give you an idea of what that looks like for me. Because when you say to some people that you have to support your police department, initially some of us might say, well, I don't know if I can do that because, and there are several reasons that they list. And let me say to you, as your mayor, I can understand where you're coming from. But let me say to you again, in spite of all of the things that you might list that are reasonable and that I can understand are important to all of us, we still have to support our police department. Let me show you what that looks like for me. That means for me that when there was an issue a few years back with the death of a young man by the name of Jamal Valentine from what's called excited delirium, and the community was concerned, I ensured and I led the council to make sure that the police department provided for us any use of force reports that occurred between our meetings. And so, for example, if the police department was involved in a use of force incident during that period of time, they were required to submit those reports to our city manager, who in turn shared those reports with the council so that we can ensure accountability. That's supporting the police department. When the police department needed body cameras to ensure that they were being protected, as well as those that they would come into contact with, to make sure that their rights were being restored or their rights were being respected, I led the council to acquire body cameras, and I believe we were the second or third city in this county to acquire body cameras, and our police department wore them willingly. In fact, as a young council member, one of the things that I did to support our police department was at the end of every meeting, I read aloud the names of those that had been murdered in our city who were victims of unsolved murders. I supported our police department by making sure that we hired, before the chief we have now, Randall Argon was the chief back then, making sure that we hired a police chief that would implement community policing to make sure that our communities were being policed safe. But I didn't stop there in my support for the police, in my support for this community. Every budget that we had, except for a couple where we actually cut funding across the board, we added funding to our police department. We doubled our narcotics division. We added funding to our rapid response team. We added diversity training and de-escalation training. We supported our police department by giving them the tools they need to be better. And so I'm asking us today, in the first leg of this Safe City initiative, to simply support our police. That doesn't mean that we will agree with everything that our police do. That means that we support our police departments by supporting them, by giving them the information they need to be better. Because at the end of the day, we want our police department to be better. At the end of the day, the police department wants to be better. And so while we won't always agree with our police department, we ought always support them. If they are doing things that we should applaud, why won't we applaud them? If there are officers that are serving us from a standpoint and a standard of excellence, why won't we acknowledge them? Why won't we take pictures with them, shake their hands, pat them on the back? Why won't we find the officers in our community and introduce ourselves, get to know them, understand who they are and where they're from? Let them know what those things are that they need to know to help us police our communities. And so when we say support our police department, we're not simply saying just allow our police department to do whatever we think that they have the right to do. We're saying engage our police department every day, in every occasion, and in every season. Talk to them. Don't ever stop talking to them. Don't ever stop encouraging them. Don't ever stop trying to find answers with them. And if, in fact, there are things that need to be brought to the attention of the hierarchy in the police department, meet with the police chief. If that doesn't work, meet with the city manager. If that doesn't work, meet with your council members or your mayor. And if that doesn't work, replace us all. But never ever, you cannot afford to ever stop supporting your police department, because at the end of the day, like I said before, all of us really, really want one thing, and that's to live safely in the city in which we choose. And there is no way, I'll say that again, there is no way for us to live safely in the city that we choose without having a viable, fully supported police department. If there are officers that perhaps need to be disciplined, then we make those reports to the chief. But we don't dismiss an entire police department based on the actions of a few. We have to move past that to a place that we can support our police department and expect them to respond to our support in ways that will keep all of us safe. You and I have a right to be safe in our own community, and they have a responsibility to keep us safe. But that responsibility is a shared responsibility, which means we can't stop talking to them. We can't dismiss them. And we definitely cannot stop them from coming into our neighborhoods and fighting crime. Because when police are kicked out of our neighborhoods, the only result that that can bring is more crime into our neighborhoods. And so if we say that we give up, we throw our hands up, and we don't want to have to deal with the police department anymore, all that does is allows for the criminals to advance in our community. And we don't want the criminals advancing in our community. So we support. Sometimes that means disagree, but all times that means what? Support. The second leg of this, and this is why this is important, the second leg of this Safe City initiative is the idea that the community has to now step forward and be the community that we need to be so that we can live the ways in which we choose to live. That means that we have to step up and we have to reform our neighborhood watch group. We have to start talking to each other as neighbors. We have to build a network so that we can be able to identify potential crime, report those crimes to the police department, share those crimes with the community, with our neighbors and with our friends, build a network so strong and so vibrant and so effective that criminals will think twice before they decide to drive up and into our community. And we can do that. We can build and rebuild a neighborhood watch group that will be superior, far superior to any criminal element and organization that this city might face. Us as neighbors, as co-workers, as friends, developing a network that will help us to not only solve crime, but that'll help us to prevent crime. And if those of us that really want the police to not be as much of a part of our community, then what we need to be doing is we need to be establishing such a powerful and effective neighborhood watch group that the police don't have to come into our communities, that we handle those issues ourselves with information sharing, with reporting, that we have cameras available, that we have evidence available, that when the police do respond to calls in our community, our neighborhood watch is so strong that we have already did the work for them. So all they have to do is then take the things that we've done to set these things up for them and execute them. We can do that through a neighborhood watch program. But also we're wanting to partner with corporate members of our community and perhaps even the city of Lamarque to increase the amount of the rewards for Crime Stoppers. We want to make it so advantageous for us to report crime that the criminals realize that every moment they spend in the city of Lamarque is a moment that they are being watched by the citizens of Lamarque, and any one of us can turn any one of them in because it is so lucrative to us that we wouldn't think twice about turning them in so that they can be apprehended and removed off of our streets. We can do that. We can do that if we stand up as a community and we band together and decide together as a community that we no longer tolerate crime. We have to get so angry that we will not tolerate crime in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Band together as a community, all of us, from Omega Bay to Westwood Circle, to Lake Road, over to Cherry Street, all of us banding together as one Lamarque, fighting the elements of crime that are passing through our city, using and exploiting our people, causing us to live in fear and destroying our quality of life. It is us, my friends, against them. It is not Lake Road versus Omega Bay. It's not the police department versus the citizens. It is those of us that live, love, and serve in Lamarque against those of us that seek to exploit and use Lamarque for their own personal and financial gain. It's just that simple. So we need to stand up as a community, reorganize, and decide with every fiber of our being that we are no longer going to take it. And so as we support the police, let me say this again, as we support them and as we show them how we want them to police our communities, because they have to know. They have to understand how we want them to police our communities. As we do that, and as we stand up as community members to decide that we want to deal with our community and resolve the issues of crime, then we can form a partnership. Then we can implement community policing again, so that the police would be required to come and get to know the neighbors and get to know the communities and get to know the types of crime. And they're willing to do that. You know why they're willing to do that? They're willing to do that because ultimately at the end of the day, and I have two sons that are police officers, at the end of the day, they want to go home too. They don't wake up in the morning thinking about dying in a blaze of glory. They want to go home just as much as we want our children to come home as well. So as we partner with them, as we build this relationship with them, then your council can begin implementing things that will be beneficial to our community, such as an innovative possibility of providing Ring door cameras for every resident that wants it. Perhaps we would provide it for you and you might pay us back through your water bill payments in increments, because those things aren't cheap. But perhaps if we can find a way to get our residents a Ring doorbell so that they can see the crime that's happening in our community. If we can install a system of cameras throughout our community that would be able to capture evidence as crimes are taking place in our community, we might be able to help our police resolve the issues of crime in our community. If in fact we can help our police department be a better police department by funding training and innovation and helping them again to understand what we need from them, we might be able to give them the resources they need to respond to us in the ways that we wish. The city council has already passed, this summer, passed a budget item that will allow for us to engage 10 young people in our community with summer jobs. And so one of the other things that we're going to do, and we're going to continue to do, is we're going as a city to continue to provide for jobs and activities for our young people to be a part of, not only in the summer, but for year round. Perhaps bring back the softball leagues and the baseball leagues and the kids fish, but not only that, bring back some of the entrepreneurial programs that we did with our young people, the lemonade days, and some of the other things that we have done before COVID-19, because we know that those things work. We know that we can grab the people, our young people, before they get involved in things that are detrimental to their own well-being. And if we can grab them before, then we can steer them in the right direction. If we can steer them in the right direction, then we can resolve a lot of the issues that we're facing with our young people right now. We can do this, but we have to be willing to do this. There is nothing easy about community. Community is one of the hardest words that you'll ever have to understand, because it requires us to share the sacrifice. It requires us to serve our neighbors. It requires us to find common ground with those that it would seem as though we don't have any common ground with. Community requires us to get out of ourselves and look toward a shared goal. And that shared goal ought to be that the city of Lamarque be the safest city in this state. We can do that, y'all. If we stand together, we can do that. And what I'm asking you to do has nothing to do with the death of Joshua Feast. That's being investigated, and that is out of our hands at this time. But I want you to know that we, myself, and members of our council, we pray for this Feast family every day. I want you to know that I've personally reached out to the Feast family on several occasions, the morning of the shooting. I want you to know that I worked with Mr. Jackson and Lakeisha Feast and her attorney to get Mrs. Feast into our building so that she can review the tape of her son's death before everybody else did. And I sat there and I watched it with her. I want you to understand that we have lost tremendous amounts of sleep thinking about what has happened in our community. And I want you to know that there is not one member that I've talked to in our community that has suggested anything otherwise, that we are all in mourning for what has happened in our community. But what I'm asking you to do today has nothing to do with that, because that will be resolved. Today, we have to understand that once that is resolved, we still have to live with each other. And we still have to live in a society in which the police is the prescription for our protection. So the work has to start somewhere. And I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful that the work starts today, that we're able to move forward, not agreeing with everything that happens, but with a resolute determination to support our police, even if it means we have to say to them, I don't like what you're doing. It's okay to say that. But after we say that to them, let's share with them what we believe and we know we deserve. And then let's support them in doing what we know they know how to do. Because I believe in my heart that the Lamarque Police Department wants to be as best as they possibly can be. I know that. And so we need to support that. Before I go to my seat, I'm gonna say it one more time. It don't mean that we agree with them every time. It just means that we find common ground and we let them know how we feel. And if they don't listen, then we go to our elected officials and we make them listen. If we can do that, we can turn this city around. And this city can be the safest city in Texas, like we've been saying for the last 2 weeks. God bless you. I pray that you have heard what we are trying to do. I pray that you understand the goal of this city. And I pray that after today, you might be able to move in a way that would reflect that we are tired of this happening in our city and we're ready to move forward to a new day. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the city of Lamar.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tink Jackson. I'm the city manager for the city of Lamar. For those of you that have not met me, first I want to start off by saying I really love the passion that our mayor brings to things when he speaks about things that he believes in, which also leads to a tendency for him to go past his time limit. So if we hit the 4 o'clock mark and you guys need to leave, that's okay, but we're probably going to go a little bit over in our time. Oh. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. Okay, so let's do this. So first of all, let me start again. First of all, my name is Tink Jackson. I'm the city manager for the city of Marque. We're coming pretty close to our 4 o'clock time that we said we were going to have you guys wrapped up by. So if you feel that you need to go ahead and go, that's fine. We're going to go a little bit over, but because we think what we're talking to you about today is important. Mayor talked at length about this Safe City initiative, and I just want to kind of talk to you about something from the past here and kind of bring it into perspective as to how, because right now it seems like the process in front of us may be kind of daunting, and it's kind of hard to see how it may actually work out. But I want to remind you guys of something that this city did in the past. So let's go back to 2014. In 2014, a bunch of citizens with the city council came together and started working on a strategic plan for the city of Lamar. There was a lot of things that people wanted to see done differently in the community, a lot of things that they wanted to see improved. So they worked with the city council and through 2014 formulated this strategic plan, and that strategic plan was implemented in 2015. Well, there's some interesting things I want to point out about the strategic plan, because first and foremost, for those of you who don't quite understand how city government operates, the city of Lamar by charter is a council manager form of government. So what does that mean? That means that the city council adopts policies, and it's the city manager's job to implement those policies and make sure those policies are fulfilled. So a strategic plan then is a policy that the city council adopts that the city manager then implements to make sure that what was asked for gets done. So let's talk about a few things that came out of that 2014-2015 strategic plan. Blight reduction. Blight reduction was the thing that was important to the citizens in 2014. Since that policy has been put in place, we've had over 150 dilapidated structures removed from our city, which has led to additional safety in our city. We've had a mowing program instituted in our city, which has led to additional safety in our city. One of the things that was in there was the future of the Lamarck Independent School District, and of course over time we've seen how that's worked out. Of course that was not under the city's control as to what was going to happen with that. Infrastructure needs were a big critical issue that came up in 2014. We've continued to work on infrastructure. Infrastructure has been a focus since I've been here. You as citizens, with the budget year before last, and the contract with the citizens, we approved an expansion at the wastewater treatment plant, which was necessary for the city. Our Public Works Department has worked on new headworks at the lift station, a new 6th Street lift station, all things that improved our infrastructure in the city, and we continue to work on that because the infrastructure was significantly behind, and we obviously have a long ways to go with that. There were some other things that were critical issues in there, and I'm just going to name a few of them off. We had infrastructure needs, community image, economic development, city human resources, developing our own leaders from within, communications, youth engagement, volunteer engagement and development. We had 12 points total that came out of that plan. 12 points that came out of that strategic plan. And not one critical issue that was mentioned in there was fire or police. All the critical issues that came up in that strategic plan were all other issues besides fire and police. That plan was implemented in 2015 with a timeline of 7 years, which is through 2022. So this year would be the year, 2021, would be the year where we would start talking about an update to the strategic plan, or a full comprehensive plan, which would be even better. But this would be the time when we would start working on that. So now we obviously see that we have additional needs and we have additional things that we need to work on. So this first meeting, this first step in developing this Safe City initiative is obviously probably the first step in this updated strategic plan where we can talk about all the things we need to do to make our city better. And we want to talk about all the things we need to do to make our city better because we all want the city to be better. I live here just like you do. I want the city to be safe. I want the city to be the best that it can be. We have to understand that we have to work inside budgetary limitations and some other things, but there's a lot of things that we can do to improve what we're doing here in our city and how we're going to do it. Mayor Bell quickly talked about what's going on with the one situation, and we just want to be very clear with that. It's imperative that the city, as an administrative body, stay out of any involvement in the investigation that's happening right now. There are legal reasons for that, and there are structural reasons for that to make sure that we don't do anything that impedes or impairs that. So we're going to follow those because we want the absolute truth to come out in everything that happens, and we want you guys to be able to see at the end of that process what happened and see that it was done fairly. That brings up another thing that we've heard a lot about, and one of the questions that we got today, and we've seen these questions a lot of time, and we've talked about this a lot, is when we talk about the word transparency. And what does the word transparency mean? As a city, we constantly focus on, council's constantly focused on this, as an administration we're constantly focused on this, and that's about being transparent. We want the citizens to know what's happening. We want the citizens to understand why things are happening and why things have to be done a certain way. Transparency, though, has timing with it under the law. And so sometimes you have to remember that while there may be things that we know or things that we've seen, especially when it comes to a personnel action, there may be things that we know that we have to know as in our jobs. We're not allowed by law to tell the public those things because that person, the other person, the employee, has a right to certain things not being made public as well. So we have done everything we can to stay out in front of transparency with everything that's happened so far. I think the chief's going to talk a little bit more about transparency when it comes to police actions here in a little bit. But just know that sometimes transparency, sometimes 100%, everything out there right at the time that it happens, we're not legally allowed to do that. But everything that we have been allowed to do legally in this process, we've done. Some of the things we've actually done faster than it was recommended to us to do them. Some of the things, particularly the release of the video, was way before it was recommended that we do it. But we're trying to be open with the public. We're trying to be completely transparent with the public. And we want to do that with all this because we know the more that you guys know, the more that you can help us. And that's what this is about. There's 17,000 citizens in this city. This city is big size-wise. There is no way that on a daily basis our employees can interact with every citizen. There is no way that on a daily basis we can see everything that happens in this town. But you guys can. And you guys can call us and let us know. You guys can call us, or you can call the police department and you can tell them about something that's happening in your communities. That's the way it's going to get better. It's not going to get better with everybody on Facebook. We mentioned this in the town hall the other night. There was a shooting a while back, and it was posted on Facebook before the police department received a call. How is the police department supposed to respond to something in a timely manner if everybody wants to jump on Facebook and talk about it before they call the police and tell the police about it? So we've got to work on our processes and the way we communicate with you. We also need the public to work on the processes and the way they communicate what's going on with us. But we're going to get through that process together. We're going to come up with some improved processes. We're going to make sure that everything that we have out there as far as our social media impact, that we're very clear what we're related, what we're tied to and what we're not tied to. Some of the platforms in town that people talk on all the time, they're not city platforms. We don't monitor those. So you can be on there talking on there about everything. We're never going to see it because that's not something that we monitor because it's not ours. So there's a lot of things that we can do to improve. What I wanted to make sure to point out though was don't think that this process is something that's going to get forgotten. Don't think that this process is something that is too daunting that we're never going to get through it. You guys have already shown you can get through it once. We did it in 2014 and 2015. Now we're going to start again in 21 leading into 22 with an update to this. And this Safe City initiative is the first part of that. and it's a very important part of it for all of us. Everybody in the city, everybody that works for the city is committed to this, is committed to improvement, is committed to making sure that we get a plan that is functional, is something we can all work on together, is something that you guys are just as tied to as we are. And when it's something that we're all working on together, it's something that we know that we're gonna get done, and it's something that we know is gonna make our city better at the end of the road. So in closing, I just want to say, I appreciate you guys coming out again today. I know the weather outside is not a typical Texas day outside. We appreciate you guys coming out. Chief's going to come up and talk real quick. After he finishes, we are going to stick around for just a little bit longer, so if you have some additional questions, you'll have a chance to catch up with us at the end. So again, thank you guys for coming out, and looking forward to working on this together as a community to get this all resolved.
I'm going to go ahead and take this off so everybody can hear me. So I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Kirk Jackson. I'm the Chief of Police for Marque Police Department. I want to start off by addressing a question that was posed to me, and it's fitting because it is actually the first topic that I wanted to talk about. The question was, this is just not a Lamarck problem. It is a Hitchcock, Tech City, Galveston, Dickinson problem, and how are we going to address that? I can tell you we are addressing it. There's a lot going on right now, a lot that we can not talk about. There's some that we can, but I can assure you we are addressing it. It is in progress. We are working together in concert with other local agencies, county agencies, state and federal agencies as well. We are addressing the problem. There's a lot going on. Hopefully pretty soon you're going to be able to hear about what's going on in our region. And the cities that were listed, please understand, that's not an all-inclusive list. This is going on region-wide. So it is not just our local agencies that are addressing it. It is a regional mission to combat all of this. So, and to expound on that. So the individuals who are responsible for these acts of violence that you've been reading about and hearing about lately, they're a very small group, very specific group. This is not random acts. This is not people just driving around and shooting at various houses. This is very specific. They know what they're doing. It is a very confined group. So just know that we're working on this. Now, just like with everybody else, due process is an absolute. So we're making arrests, but we're making arrests when probable cause exists to do so. There is a lot going on. You're going to see that here pretty soon. Touching on the release of information. So when crimes are reported to the police department, oftentimes the media is on scene talking about it before the police officers on scene have had the opportunity to even dig into what's going on and get the information. And I understand that the citizens want to know what's going on. But the reality is, in today's world, instant information is not a reality. We're going to release the information that we can release when the investigation warrants, but there's going to be some information that I'm sure the public is going to want to know that we just cannot release. If we do so, it is going to jeopardize the investigation, and it's going to jeopardize our ability to catch the bad guys. So knowing that, whenever you get on social media or you're on listening to a news article, there's going to be information that you're not going to hear. You're going to want to know more, but please understand there's information we just cannot put out there, because when you guys hear that information, so is the bad guys. They're getting it as well, and we do not want them knowing the information that we know, because it's going to make our job even harder. So I would like to talk about, and Mayor talked about Neighborhood Watch. So the neighborhoods that you live in, you know your neighborhoods. You know what's normal, you know what's not normal. If there's something going on in your neighborhood that is out of the ordinary, I want you to contact the police department. Now, you can do that in a number of ways. Of course, if this is something that's going on right now, if there's an active disturbance or you hear screaming and hollering, please call 911 or call the regular line, whichever one warrants. But if there's some suspicious activity that's going on in your neighborhood that's just not normal, that you're pretty sure this is probably some drug activity or and as much as I hate to say it, human trafficking is a reality in the world that we live in. You can contact Crime Stoppers. We have a number of ways to contact Crime Stoppers. You can do it by phone, which is by calling 409-938-8477, or you can know it as 938-TIPS. Contact them. Your identity is guaranteed by law to remain anonymous. You will not be identified whatsoever. It is a violation of the law for anybody to reveal the identity of a tipster. So just know, whenever you call Crime Stoppers, you are a number, you are not a name. Let me go into a little bit of what Crime Stoppers is real quick. So Crime Stoppers is a private organization. They are not a city entity. They are not a county entity. They are a private organization of citizens of the community who have come together and created the Crime Stoppers organization, which it has a goal of working with law enforcement, not part of law enforcement, but working with law enforcement to encourage, as I just said, anonymous information sent to law enforcement coming from the community. And if your information leads to the arrest, here in Lamarque, leads to the arrest of the person who's doing the crime that you're committed, or that you're reporting, you're eligible for a cash reward. The police department doesn't determine how much you get. That is the Crime Stoppers Board. They get their funding from the courts. They get their funding from fundraisers, but they are not part of the police department, but they do work side by side with the police department to get this, to combat crime in the communities. So those are the ways to reach us. And if our main line, the non-emergency number of the police department, is 409-938-9269. And of course, if this is what you believe to be a life safety urgent matter, you call 911. The other way of getting in contact with Crime Stoppers, you can access it through the city's website, or just pull up on your smartphone P3TIPS, P, the letter P, the number 3 TIPS, and you will find an application for Crime Stoppers, and then you plug in the information of where you're at, and you'll be able to communicate directly with Crime Stoppers through the internet, securely and anonymously. So that's the different ways of contacting the police department to report this information. So I think the microphone went out. What about now? There we go. Okay.
Chief, could you stand closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I touched on what you know in your community, in your neighborhood, as being out of the ordinary. So, that being said, I strongly encourage everybody in everybody in Lamarque, everybody in Texas City, everybody in our area to formulate a community watch, a national neighborhood watch. Now, that is not something we're going to do for you. We've got a lot of work to do, and we're working on that. I don't know what's normal in your neighborhood. You know that. I encourage you, get out there, meet your neighbors, exchange phone numbers, exchange contact information, figure out where the area of your neighborhood watch is going to be. Have a meeting, establish the communication methods with everybody. When you have your meeting, call us. We have a group of community policing officers who specialize that. They're going to come out there to your meeting. They're going to communicate with you. They're going to explain to you the ways that they can help your neighborhood watch group get the problem solved. But the first step is to get together, create your neighborhood watch group, identify the problems that you want solved in your community, and then reach out to us, and we will come and we will help you solve those problems. But I can't do it for you. We will do it with you. And there's several of you in here who know, and who already know about our Citizens Police Academy. That is one of the best ways to engage with the police department and get to know the officers, get to know the jobs the officers have to do, get to know the complexity of law enforcement operations. There are some people in this room who have attended our Citizens Police Academy, but I strongly encourage everybody to do so. We had to press pause on the CPA due to the COVID pandemic, but as soon as the case numbers allow, we are going to get it back up and running again. And I strongly encourage everybody to come enjoy the Citizens Police Academy and learn what we do. You're going to learn everything from basic patrol operations to criminal investigations. We're going to take you to the firing range and let you shoot a gun if you haven't already done so out on the range. You get to do mock traffic stops, so you can experience what the officers experience when they're out there making traffic stops. And our CPA Alumni Association is one of the most robust associations in the state of Texas. They won the Association of the Year for the state of Texas a couple years ago. It says a lot. That is Lamarque competing against the entire state of Texas. So we'll let you know whenever the case numbers allow us to start resuming our CPA classes, and I really would like everybody to come out and do so. One last thing I want to talk about is our telecommunications section. So, you know that there's law enforcement officers, there's police officers, there's firefighters, there's paramedics who are the ones that come out to your house whenever you have an issue. One of the aspects of criminal justice, of public safety, that a lot of people do not understand and truly do not appreciate is the telecommunications section. Just know that our dispatchers are in there 24/7, 365, taking information from citizens. Now, nobody calls the police department when they've had a good day. They call the police department when they've been a victim of a crime, when they're in medical distress, when something is wrong. So they are going to, they have a job to do, they have a very specific job to do, they have information to take, and they have to do it efficiently and thoroughly. Lives are at stake. When you call the dispatch center, just understand, I want everybody to know that they're not counselors, they're not going to make you feel warm and fuzzy. They have a specific job, they have specific information to take, and sometimes they're going to be abrupt with you, and they're going to say, stop, I need you to stop, I need you to answer this question. That's just reality. Now, there's sometimes when people want to hear compassion in the voice of the dispatcher. You're not always going to get that, and that's just the reality of it. If, however, you feel that you have been mistreated in any way by any of the Lamarque Police Department personnel, whether it be telecommunicators, whether it be patrol officers, whoever, I am there. Come in and speak with me or a member of the command staff. We will talk it in. If we cannot talk it out, we cannot resolve your problem, we will take it even steps further and launch an investigation into the complaint that you have. So I think I've touched on everything I really wanted to get out there, but I'm going to be over here at this table once we're done, and if you have any other questions that you would like to talk to me about, feel free to come over here. That's what we're here for, is to communicate. There are things that we're going to agree on. There's going to be things that we do not agree on. But at the end of the day, if we do not communicate with each other, what are we here for? Okay? Thank you very much.
All right. We want to thank you all for coming out today, and certainly we're passionate about serving you. We ran long, and I guess you have to get used to the fact that we are going to do what we need to do as long as it takes for us to do it, to make sure that our citizens are satisfied. One note before we close, Pastor Berry did have a seizure on yesterday, and I spoke with him on last night, and he's feeling much, much better, and wanted me to let you know that he is feeling better. Keep him in your prayers as he recovers from the health scare that he had on yesterday. But again, thank you for coming out. As we dismiss, we're going to continue to stay at our seats in case something we said today sparked your interest. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can before we get moved out of here. But again, thank you for coming out to support this Safe City initiative, and we promise you that this will get better. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of y'all's day.